morning, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I know I sound like I'm at the church doing a Easter speech, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing something way more exciting than that this morning. So you all have seen the commercials, you've seen the short drops on social media, and we are finally here. We are here to our first recording of our podcast that we are super excited about. RJ Verified. And so we have guests in the house today. I'm going to be introducing you all to the guests in just a minute. But first, I want to remind you all of what RJ Verified is actually about. So RJ Verified is the platform that centers the voices of Black women and communities of color to reimagine and advocate for reproductive justice. And we do this by storytelling, expert analysis, and cross-movement conversations. And that cross-movement conversations is going to be a really important part to this, because so often different places in the movement work, sometimes we tend to do this work in a silo. And we're more powerful when we're doing this work together. And so that's what a lot of RJ Verified is going to be about. We're going to cover things a little outside of the scope of what you think that you are accustomed to hearing when you talk about reproductive justice, which is what RJ is. And so we're going to start that conversation today, and we're going to be talking from a different lens, but we will be talking reproductive justice. So today's podcast, we'll be talking about period justice. Very important conversation that we need to be having, period justice. And so we're going to be really excited about helping you all to understand how period justice is a reproductive justice issue. And so we're going to be talking today with these amazing two young sisters here who attend school in the Dallas suburbs. I mean, not the Dallas suburbs, but the Dallas suburbs, Duncanville. They attend school in Duncanville, and which is a suburb in Dallas County. And so they're going to be talking about this, like, really important, powerful work that they're doing at their school around creating a system of equity, of justice, of fairness, of opportunities for folk who have a monthly flow. And that is very important. And so I'm excited to hear what they have to say. So we're going to be talking with Kelsey, and because they did not write this name down for me. We're going to be talking to Kelsey, and we're going to be talking to Leslie, and they're going to give us some more in-depth information on who they are, what they do, why they're doing it, and where they're doing it. And so I'm just super excited to hear them, and I know that you're going to be as excited as I am. So since Kelsey is sitting here next to me, we're going to start with Kelsey.
Okay, so my name is Kelsey Smith, and I'm the founder of Project Code Red, which is a student-led movement where we are trying to get our school to begin providing free pads and tampons in the school restrooms. This is my co-founder.
I am Leslie. I am the co-founder of Code Red. I mainly focus on helping market what we do and help push out our movement and what we are trying to advocate for. And
So as the initiative moves along, we're trying to start a student organization instead of a movement, where we want our members to be educated on what period justice exactly is, and we want them to educate others. That was really a big thing that I wanted to do personally, and Leslie obviously agreed with me. So I just went to her one day. I was just like, hey, what if we just get our school to, do this? Because they don't do it. Schools used to do it. I talked with my mom, and they used to have dispensers in the restrooms. They would obviously have to pay like 25 cents to get a pad or a tampon, but it was still there. And when you look in schools now, those dispensers are not there for some reason, and it's just a crazy thing to me, because this happens to female bodies every single month. And even if it isn't every single month, it's at an unexpected time, and you just need that access. You need those products so that you're able to, you won't bleeding through your pants in the middle of the workday or the middle of the school day. Right. Just won't be as embarrassing as our finds it to be.
Yeah, I love that. Anything else?
No?
Well,
You don't have to. We're not gonna force you now. It's just gonna flow.
maybe in the conversation.
So we're trying to mainly providing these menstrual products for the girls in our school, and we're trying to start our
We're trying to begin our testing phase. So for our testing phase, we promised our school that we would gather supplies, because the beginning phase of it, we're just going to start in our school offices, and then we're going to putting the dispensers in the restroom. Now, part. But schools are a little bit stingy with money nowadays for some reason. So.
And if you all are fundraising, so we're here, and you all are going to be hearing us soon. I think that it will be super amazing if you all that are listening would support these young sisters. This work that they're trying to the Affairs Center will make sure that they get it.
You can also go to givesendgo.com, where we have our own page, and you can just press it, or you can send a prayer. It's a Christian giving site. But do whatever you feel like. Just come support us, come support your community, all that stuff.
Can we get that? Make sure we get that so that we can
yes,
run
I'll
it
give y'all
so
the
that it
QR
can
code.
post. Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Just give it to Gift and Go, and you can also send your prayers.
And you can send a prayer. But yes, when we had you all last month at our Easy Access Clinic that was centered around period justice, and so we had people come in and bring actual items to donate to you all. I'm Tambra Morrison, by the way. I don't know if I introduced myself, but you know, seeing me. And so when you talk about, I want to kind of just go into a little bit of what period poverty is. So when we talk about period poverty, it's the insufficient access to menstrual products. So that's your pads, tampons, period panties, however you choose to go about taking care of your monthly menstrual cycle. Also, the lack of access to safe, hygienic spaces to be able to, like we talked about last month when we talked about the restrooms, and having them clean sufficiently. I think that matters, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, if you put on a pad or a tampon, sometimes you got to sit on the toilet. If you're not sufficiently clean in the restrooms, I don't have access to a hygienic safe space.
Yeah.
Or the information when you need it. So, meaning my options, right? We all have choices. Choices has been a big thing these last 4 years when we talking about what kind of choices we have. So when I don't know what my options are, how do I know what's best for me? How do I take full autonomy over my period if I don't know all the choices that are on the table for me? So all of these things define what period poverty or that's period poverty, not necessarily period justice. And so I'm looking at some research that was done. And so in the U.S., nearly 17 million people who menstruate live in poverty. So if I'm already starting in poverty, I lack a lot of access to a lot of things that I need for my livelihood, also to make full bodily autonomy choices for myself. Because when you limit my options, you limit how I can make choices for myself, right? And so if I start in poverty and then now I start to menstruate, there's some research done where even like, I think me and you, Ms. Jones, was talking about this, where girls in high school or middle school, if they're wearing uniforms, they don't go back to school once they start to menstruate, which looks like pushing me deeper in poverty because I don't have just a high school diploma.
Right, because it creates a job. I want to say that data said upwards of 20%, like it lead to like a 20% rate in high school dropout, or I don't like dropout, or people not completing high school, and that's for the better part. It's girls who menstruate, and it is in the inner city, and it is in these schools where they're forced to wear uniforms, which is another whole conversation around poverty. And wearing uniforms, and very specifically the khaki pants. So yeah.
And just to add to that, period poverty impacts a majority of low income communities. And we already know who makes up the majority of low income communities, which is POC people. Um, it's stated that like we already have high dropout rates among our communities. We already have stigmatization surrounding periods and even just sexual education in our communities. It's kind of like a taboo topic for some reason. I don't know why, but it is. It's always
We live in a patriarchal society.
we do. It's just always been that way in Black and Latino communities and other non-white communities. So when we have that lack of access, we're seeing higher dropout rates among our people, and that's just a disadvantage that we already have to deal with. And as women, it's an even greater disadvantage because men don't have to deal with this. People who are born as with male parts don't have to deal with this. And that ties in to reproductive justice.
Yes, it do. It is an absolute reproductive justice issue.
And
Yes.
I want to take it further to say, like, anybody with a womb,
Mm-hmm.
because we have the autonomy to identify as we please.
Yes.
Anybody with a womb, you know, deal with these products. And I even want to say, like, when you talk about stigma and shame, right? And what you don't understand, you shame.
Mhm.
And so we live in a patriarchal society, and so where white women might have access, they still deal with the
They
shame.
still do with the
Mhm.
shame.
And so we have to deal with the shame and the lack of
And the lack
access,
of
because it's going to show that I don't have access
Mm-hmm.
to what I need, you know, for myself. And this is like when you're talking about women, I think, if I'm not mistaken, period poverty started on more so like, I think it was women in prison,
Mhm.
not having access to what they need, like menstrual products that they need
Because they only get so few
Yes.
per month.
per month. And God forbid you have a heavy flow this month, or it's a little bit longer than usual, or if it's shorter for me but it's a little longer for you, and so I give you a little bit of mine and now I'm tapped out. Like, that's wild. So then when you think about women at work, there's a study that was done by the Department of Behavior Sciences and Health in St. Louis University, where they talked about 64% of low-income women couldn't afford period products at least once in the past year, right? So what that look like? If I'm a
What's it look
low-income woman, I'm working at Walmart, I'm working at the gas station, I'm working at the grocery store, and I can't afford products this month. That means I can't go to work.
Or it means I'm going to take what I need.
Or I'm going to get,
And that
you're going to
creates.
criminalize me.
Yes. Mhm.
And now I got to deal with a system.
Yeah.
I got to deal with a system on my life because what I needed, I had to go ahead because I'm in the store.
I'm in the
where
store.
Plenty of them.
Yes.
We actually throw them away when they expire. We take them
Yes.
off the shelf and throw them away.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to take it because that's the thing too, where when you I remember when I was like 21 and I was working for Circle K. And I had a lot of homeless people that hung out in front. I'm gonna tie it all together in front. And so the food on the grill, after a certain amount of time, you have to take it and throw it away, or it's considered stealing. I'm literally throwing away food when I have people out here who don't got access to this very thing where I could just pack it up. And so I don't work for Circle K, right? And
And
the
you
statute of
good.
limitations might be
Gotta
good.
be- yeah.
So allegedly, I would pack this food up and give it to the people who are sitting in front here and that are hungry. That's the same with period products, right? If you're tabbing me as a woman, throw all this stuff away, and I know I need it. I don't have nothing at home, and I'm on my last pad, and I'm at work, and I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
But then I could be criminalized because I took something that we're throwing away and kept it. So, lovely United States of America.
Don't you love it?
And so 21% of those 64% low income women face this issue every single month. So what does that look like to every month have to just make a decision on, am I going to get a house full of groceries? Not even a house full, because if you're in low income, that look like, and you're working, that looks like I'm gonna get what I can until we make it to the next paycheck. Because we need to talk about the poor middle class, but that's another
And sometimes there's more than one person in the household flowing.
yes, it's me, right? And then I have daughters,
Yes.
and so I have to. And pads and period products alone aren't cheap.
They aren't. And we only just recently in 2023, I believe that was 2 years ago, got rid of the pink tags.
The tax.
Yes. Got rid of the tax.
I remember I was so happy. I went to my mama. I said oh my gosh, mama, we don't have any more tax on period products. She said, you ain't gotta buy it. I was just like, I do in a few years.
Yeah.
Right.
But they still have it in some states, and it's just like period products are already expensive, especially if you have a heavier flow. You maybe have to buy 2 boxes of tampons or 2 boxes of pads, and that can run up to like, heck, in states like California, maybe like $48, something like that. It's really not cheap for
With the
some.
tax added.
And with the tax added, it makes it even more expensive.
And then so some women resort to just makeshift.
Yeah.
And this also ties in with a lot of the student unions in schools, with the fact that they can't get the products they need.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes them stay home from school, miss schoolwork, and that also leads to them not completing
Yeah.
their
Statistically, 1 in 5 teens struggle to afford period products because, again, when it goes back to more than one person administrating, and I'm old enough and I'm a teen, and I probably have been given, I ain't gonna say the burden, I probably have been given the responsibility of purchasing certain items for myself, right? So 1 in 5 teens have struggled to afford period products. 4 in 5 students have missed class monthly due to the lack of access to period products.
Yes, actually, we have some
Come on.
student testimonies with us.
Okay, let's
We
get
got our
that.
Zens here. Let's hold our Zens
Let me
up.
hold this Zen
They're
up.
so cute.
This was made by our member Kayla Kiddos.
Okay, Kayla.
Yeah, she's not here with us today, but
But we're going to shout Kayla out anyway.
So a student testimony, a girl said, as a girl with a period on the heavier side, it's frustrating to find a pad that will prevent leakage. The ones in the nurse's office aren't big enough, so I don't even bother asking for one anymore.
Wow.
there was one that said, I bled through my pants while trying to find a restroom, and when I finally found one that was open, there was no toilet paper to make a makeshift pad.
And so can y'all
That's
speak
real.
to the locking of the bathrooms at the school? Because that speaks to the access of hygienic, safe spaces.
So on our campus is really big. We have a freshman side, we have a middle area for like
More CT.
yeah, for CTE classes, and we have a side where the upperclassmen are. So just imagine about 5,000 students in that big school, and there are only like 2 bathrooms open. Students have to literally walk across campus to find a restroom or go to the nurse's office. Sometimes the nurse's office isn't available because they use that for students like special needs kids. Sometimes they need to go in there. Sometimes people need to be administered medication in there. So it's not always available, and the nurses will say, go to the restroom. But there is no restroom open. And if you're about to bleed through your pants, you only have like a few minutes before the blood is
Imagine having
it's
to walk
visible.
around the whole campus trying to find a free open restroom.
That's clean with toilet paper.
That's
is-
clean. Yeah,
that
the
is
toilet
wild.
paper, you usually have to find a custodian to replace it. Or the teacher, a lot of my teachers had toilet paper in their rooms, which spoke to the issue. They would literally, the teachers would get annoyed because they had to use the bathrooms too, because there wouldn't be a staff bathroom nearby. So it was just a really annoying issue, and they really tightened up on it during the beginning and end of the school year, because that's when kids are the most chaotic. But for the kids who don't do anything bad, it's just an annoyance.
So I want to I'm looking at you all's data here, and I want to just bring this up, Tim, before you go to your next point. There's this misconception of where folk live. We mix it up with how they live. You live in the suburbs, so that means that, yeah, if you're living in the suburbs, you got it going on. And so I'm looking at, I know better, but I'm looking at this, and it says 50% of Duncanville High School is female students. Of that 50%, 75% of them are economically disadvantaged. That's a huge conversation right there because, again, there is this huge misconception around where you are and how you are. Because living in the suburbs may look good and sound good. And for all you suburbanite folk out there, good, stay suburbanite. There's this misconception, oh, I'm in the suburbs. Because I'm a girl who moved to the suburbs, right? But I don't look like a suburb girl, right? So a lot of suburb girls don't speak to me. First time in my life living in DeSoto have I ever experienced going in the store and not chopping it up with other women who look like me. Clearly, I don't look like I'm supposed to be there, you know? And so that happens a lot. I'm supposed to be there if I'm there, but because I'm there, don't have nothing to do with what's really happening in my life, what's really happening in my home. Kids in the suburbs are going to school hungry. Kids in the suburbs, girls are going to school without having proper things for their flow. Kids in the suburbs are going to the school, leaving their homes. Sometimes kids in the suburbs don't even have a home. That's another whole conversation that we'll have to talk about at another time. But that really stuck. See, the reason why that stuck out to me is I say it all the time. Y'all getting it mixed up. Y'all thinking because people living in the suburbs, they balling. Maybe they was balling when they got there, but they balled out. Life happens and things happen. But because we're living in the suburbs, we are ashamed to say that this is happening. Because I'm going to tell you, I live in DeSoto, and when that food pantry thing is open on my street on Beltline, sometimes you think it's a whole car accident have happened because that line is going back so far. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I tell you who I see in that line, I don't see a lot of, I'm going to go with what you say. I don't usually use that term, but I see a lot of POC folk in there. I see a lot of people of color in that. I don't see a lot of people of color in that line. I see a lot of white people in that line because we have been made to feel shame of not being able to say things is not what they look like. So anyway, I just that stuck out with me.
You tied that right back around to that for middle class. So we and that's coming later. Check that episode out. But so when we talk about when we talked about the period poverty piece and we bring it around to what period justice is, right? So period justice refers to the movement to ensure fairness and equity in administration. So that means no one is unfairly burdened, shamed, or held back because of their period. It's about recognizing menstrual products as basic necessities and not luxuries. Because right now, period products period products is a luxury. And so, we talk about the period tax. Getting the tampon tax removed started with the period. Like this was one of the biggest initiatives of period justice movement to get that tax removed. So, I don't know if I want to ask that in it. I'll ask you now, and I'm going to ask everybody in the end. What does period justice look like to you? Because when we get deeper in this conversation, I'm going to see how that changes.
You want to go first? So what period justice looks like to me is having the necessities that a woman needs for their period. So like what we were talking about earlier, the free flow. I really want the fact that women have what they need for what they choose to do while on their periods. Yeah. So if they want a free flow, they have the necessity items for them to allow them to do that. Yes.
What period justice looks like to me is, especially in my family, being able to talk about my period, being able to talk about how it affects my life, being able to talk about how it affects my health, being able to talk with medical professionals without being cut down. That's what period justice is to me, because at the end of the day, our periods is what affects our health the most. It's not really researched in medical institutes. It's not really talked about, and therefore the doctors and the medical professionals don't know how to handle female born people when it comes to health. And that's a really big issue that also ties into how women are denied at with medical professionals. I'm not gonna get into that because I can rant about it for a really
You definitely in the right house.
I can rant about it for a really long time, but period justice to me is being able to talk about it freely without being shamed, without my mother or female family members saying, oh, you can't talk about that with your male family members, or you can't talk with your male friends. Like, yes, I can. They need to about it because over half the population is female. Like, it's gonna happen. It's a natural thing that happens with our bodies. And that's another cultural thing in Texas too, about how they shame women for their bodies for some reason. Like,
Well,
whatever.
a
It's a
real,
word
real
thing.
good reason is because we live in such a patriarchal
World.
And in our organization, we at first we didn't think, we're like, oh, maybe some of the males in our school wouldn't really want to do this. But when we first had our first like meeting, a lot of like males showed up, and they have been advocating for us, and they've been there at every step that we've been taking in this Code Red project.
I love it.
And when we did our Instagram post, like, we had a lot of male people coming into our DMs and being like suggesting ideas, telling their stories about their sisters and their mothers and their friends. I even had one of my male friends, he asked me, should I start carrying around period products? I was just like, heck yes. That would be great. Like, you could talk about it with your male friends, and it's becoming more of an acceptable topic in our generation. Like, I don't feel the shame of having to hand my friend a period product under the table and being like secret code operative about it. Like, no, I'm gonna just hand it to them, and we're not gonna be ashamed of it, and nobody's really looking our way because it's like, it's natural. What are you gonna do about it?
And also that ties in with the fact that if there's no products in the bathrooms, we have to go ask a teacher or a nurse. And some of these girls are, they feel like they can't, like they feel like they just can't go. They're shy, or they have to like tell the teacher in front of all the students, hey, can I go to the nurse to get, this.
And especially if the teacher is in a bad mood that day, oh, you really don't want to ask them to go to the restroom because they'll be like. One time I had a
they
teacher.
probably on their period.
One time I had a substitute teacher who just wouldn't let anyone go to the restroom, female or male. So I went up to her. I was just like, I gotta go to the restroom. She said no. I said, I'm about to bleed through my pants. You're about to let me go to this restroom. And then she looked at me shocked and let me go. But it's just like the fact that I have to tell you out loud in front of this small classroom. Like, sometimes classrooms only have about 5 people in
and
it.
explain herself for having to go to the restroom.
Right.
Which is time that you're wasting that you can be soiling your clothes. Because it can happen real quick.
Yeah.
It
And
can.
then also the fact that she has to go around the whole campus and find an open restroom.
Find it open.
Yes.
And it sounds like when
It's a
you
lot.
think about the bathrooms are closed, it may be a higher up that's telling the teachers, don't release y'all.
Yeah, we don't get released. We can't get released during lunch period. We can't get released during 7th block. And I'm pretty
So
sure
we're
5th
talking
block
about
too.
school. We're not talking about prison here.
No, this is
I'm
school.
getting lost in the conversation.
I will say we do have, like how I said, we have around 5,000 students. The graduating class was like 1,079. That's per each class. We do have a big student population, so the administration tries to control us all because there's some people who are just acting a little bit crazy and ruin it for everybody else, but that's not our problem.
Yeah, that's what I said. We don't want to put that on
North
you all.
Dallas has big schools, and I guarantee you their restrooms aren't locked, and they're not micromanaged or controlled in their timing when they use the restroom and when they use it's so to this, right? When we go back to the demographics and the percentage, they know that too, right? And so when I say they, I'm talking about TEA. I'm gonna take it higher than
Take
the
it higher.
schools. And there's something called school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
So when you start having a lot of a certain demographic in your school, it starts to shape how school looks for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you just said, Miss Jones, we talking about school, not a prison. Because I guarantee you, North Dallas those kids don't experience that as rowdy as they can be, because kids are kids,
Kids are
across the
kids.
board.
They're kids.
They don't experience that. They have a janitor that just come clean it up and they move forward in their day. They come and fix it. All their restrooms, make sure they're pristine, and they move forward. So why is it that in Southern Dallas, where you have a lot of kids and economically disadvantaged homes that go to this school, now all of a sudden we're controlling how y'all use the restroom to this extent? Because that 5,000 kids and it's only about 2 to 3 bathrooms open, that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
And that's a different type of conversation. It's this conversation, actually.
And because of that, if say you go to the restroom, there's a line for
Mm-hmm.
you to go.
And so now you're being harassed when you get back to class about where you've been.
Mm-hmm.
But
Or-
it's 2
And
bathrooms.
taking away class time from yourself.
Or the
learning
security
time.
officers, like, if you try to go during pass period, which is what they tell us to do, and there's a line because there's no other open restrooms, the security guards will cut the line and tell you to go to class and get a pass, but they don't want you to go out of class for the first 15 and the last 15 minutes. So,
Oh boy,
so-
Stephanie, I'm gonna be at some
Yeah.
these school board meetings. Go
Right. This is such a huge conversation because when we're talking about this, I was just thinking when you were talking, and we were talking about the prison, the access to womb to prison pipeline, what that looked like for non-white folk.
Mhm.
And for non-white women, our experiences with the criminal justice system start in systems that's supposed to be a stopgap for us. So it starts with the adultifying of black girls, brown girls. It's the adultifying of you. So what am I talking about? Looking at you as adults, treating you as adults when you're just little girls, you know, already starting to adultify you, and then putting you in, so you have an altercation with the teacher, just like a back and forth, and then you're put into not time out, but like into the classes where you're acting out of hand or whatever, and you start getting put
Yes, actually, in our school, we have a no-fly list
I know what.
a no-fly list.
where
What is a
they
no-fly?
have students on this list that aren't allowed to go out the class.
So, and these are more than likely going to be non-white folk. And so that's a system in the school, right? And so you already start detention. So you're already starting to introduce young non-white kids to detention from school. And I would love to say it started in high school, but it starts in elementary school. So you're already doing it. So you're already conditioning them to this. Then you may grow up, and this is still happening. And then you may grow up, and then you may be a person who have children, and you may be on a system. So you may be on food stamps, you may be on housing or whatever. And then you go to your case manager and you may say, oh, my child don't have anywhere to stay. Then you're criminalized again. Now, it's not the shackles and all that. You're criminalized again for that. Heaven forbid you should get food stamps and not report that you made $5 over. Then you can be, it become a criminal offense, right? And then you're put on all of these systems. So it starts, especially for girls, and you're not white in schools. Why am I saying that? Right in that school right there, they're already preconditioning y'all's minds to what it looked like to be detention, to be pulled away, to be denied access. So they're making it normal. I'm sitting here like this because I've not had a kid in school for a long time, right? I'm seriously didn't know that this is a real thing. I'm with Tam with this. Not parents. I don't want to go there right now because I'm not trying to fight nobody. How is this happening? We cannot be this okay with the school system that is allowing these things to happen to our children. But I have a good idea why it's happening.
I have a very good
But
idea.
Leslie was about to say something. I mean, not Leslie, Kelsey was about to say something.
Well, before we jump, we're gonna go ahead and take a commercial break because y'all stepping into the next point.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you just tied this to reproductive justice. Just that easy, right?
Just that quick?
So we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more on period justice and reproductive justice. clarified. And so we're going to go into tying this together for you, right? So we're going to see what reproductive justice is and how does period justice sit within that framework, right? So I'm going to pass it to Ms. Jones
Okay.
to give us a little.
So I kind of reframed this for me for the purpose of this conversation. And I'm just going to talk about the fact that reproductive justice is a human right to maintain full bodily autonomy and to be able to I'm sorry, y'all, I don't want to, I was going to say something I hadn't been saying. Been got us taken off the air. And to determine the conditions by which we will use our reproductive ability. And whatever that decision looks like, it's got to happen in safe and sustainable places. And so what am I talking about when I say that? Well, I want to go one step further. And also, reproductive justice can't even happen without the complete physical, mental, spiritual, political, social, and economic well-being of girls, women and girls. And so what am I talking about when the reason why I wanted to frame this differently, when I talk about full bodily autonomy, determining the conditions by which we'll use our reproductive ability. So our flow is a part of our reproductive ability, right? And how we'll use that. So just because I have a period don't mean I have to get pregnant. I don't have to, just because, and it don't have to be any health conditions tied to it. Because I have a flow, because I have a period, I don't have to have a desire to become pregnant. If pregnancy should happen, then I'm supposed to have the right to determine if that pregnancy will go full term or not. If pregnancy should happen, even though I did not want to be pregnant, and that pregnant do happen, and it do go to full term, then I'm supposed to be able to have the right to carry that child that I have now, birth that child that I have now, and be able to live in sustainable conditions. I'm supposed to be able, that's supposed to happen. That's a human right. So reproductive justice is framed in human right. Access to, because your monthly flow, it's a part of our reproductive health. And so because it's a health issue, I'm supposed to have the right to everything that I need to make sure that flow flows. And that flow don't flow in a way that it cause me harm. This idea that we're supposed to have cramps that's insane. We are not supposed to have cramps. If you are experiencing cramps in that way, there's a medical condition tied to that. You should not be having them. I tell like a lot of the young women around here, I'm like so much old. Well, I'm older than everybody up here. I couldn't imagine experiencing what's. I don't even think it's biology. It's just that I didn't, and I don't. But you're not supposed to. There's something tied to that. That's a reproductive justice issue. When you don't have access to health care all of your life, that even if it was not tied to these other systemic things that I'm talking about, your healthcare provider would be able to you're talking with you and your parents to know she's going to have some problems here. There's going to be some reproductive issues here. Some of those things is going to stem from her flow. When she very first starts to have her flow, she's going to have problems. So let's start to work with this before it even get there, right? If that's not accessible to you, that's a reproductive justice issue. You all are talking about the things that's happening in your school right now. That's 100% not having political power. That is now y'all have power because y'all done stole the power. Y'all got the power. That is a political issue. Like you have to have political freedom. You have to be able to talk about these things, and something has to be done about it. When that's denied you, that's a reproductive justice issue. The very fact that they don't have, I'm 63 years old, and they had the machines in my school. But it's also, that issue was still an issue for me, right? Because I wasn't able to talk about my period with my mother. I knew I wanted to wear tampons. Nothing. I just knew that thing wasn't gonna work for me. So because I knew my mother was not gonna buy tampons, you know what I did? I did have extra money all the time. So when it was time for me to have my period at school, baby, I went in and bought about 10 and took them home with me, you know? I used that quarter, that dime, or whatever to my convenience because I wasn't able to have that conversation with my mother. But the thing is, all of this is a reproductive justice issue. When they use your period as a way to discipline you, that is a reproductive justice issue. Because they're using who you are as a person, no matter how you identify. If you have a reproductive system, that means that more than likely you're going to have a flow. And when they use that flow to me, it's criminalizing. To criminalize you, when they use that flow to discipline you in any kind of way, that is a reproductive justice issue. When they deny you the right to flow the way you want to flow, that is a reproductive justice issue. When the products are too expensive for you to buy, that is a reproductive justice issue. And it is intentional, because you see, Viagra is very easy to get a hold to. Very easy to get a hold to. Tam, you asked the question, what would period freedom look like for me, or period justice look like for me? It would look like taking care of it like it's any other reproductive health issue. What do I mean by that? Be able, you can buy there's some of these insurances where they give you some like money. You can buy everything but period products with.
You finna get into something.
You can get mouthwash, I think. You can get all these different things, but you can't cough syrup, but you can't get period products with. What is that? That's a reproductive justice issue, because you are denied the right to have something that you need as a human being. That is a human rights social justice issue when these things are denied you. And all of these things can eventually lead to continued generational poverty. Because if you don't get to graduate from school, because that's the world that we live in now, where school and then matriculating on through higher forms of education is the determining factor as to whether or not you will or will not be successful. That's another conversation. But that is where we are with it right now. And so if girls are dropping out 20, I don't care if it's 8, I don't care if it's 1%, that's too many. But if girls are dropping out of school simply because they don't have access to period products, then that means that if they drop out of school, by the time they get back in school, they're probably going to have a couple of children. That's going to determine where they go to school at and how they finish school. That's also going to really impact their girls, their kids. It impacts where they live. Then it becomes an environmental justice issue, because now they're going to be living environmentally unsafe spaces. And they're going to be raising their kids in environmentally unsafe spaces. You see how we start with period? And so these other people want to have you thinking of reproductive justice is only talking about can you or can you not have an abortion. That's cute and that's fine and that's real, because you are supposed to be able to have one if you so desire to have one. But it goes so much deeper than that. And if we just leave that on the table, we miss all of this. And if you're not having period justice, not going to be the need for too many abortions, because your reproductive system, because of all of the different conditions that can happen. When you're not safe, when you're not well there, when you're not whole there, that can prevent you from even becoming pregnant.
Because if I'm having to wear a pad a little longer, to go in between time, that affects my reproductive system, because then you're talking about I'm open to infections. And toxins. If I can't get to the doctor, or a culturally competent doctor that can walk me through that stuff, because I might can go to a doctor with my Medicaid, because when we talking about period justice, we're talking about people who are in poverty, right? So I might can go to the doctor with my Medicaid, but it goes back to what you said, Kelsey, with, is my doctor just gonna shoot me off? Is my doctor, because if I go with my concerns, because when you're talking about, like when you said, Ms. Jones, like the issues that they may have, like when you cramping, we're talking about PCOS, POC, since we're here, POC women. POC women, I know for sure Black women, but I just can only imagine Hispanic women as well, right? They are diagnosed late, very late. Like you're in your 20s, but you started having these symptoms at 12, 13, where somebody could have caught on first and did something about it, but you were shooed away because your issues and your concerns about your body, like they're not trusting Black women. Because if I come in and I say I have a concern and shoot off like, oh, maybe you just projecting, or this is what happens, because I hear a lot of that. This is what happens to girls. It's not. If I say something is wrong, let's check it out. Because I know my body. I know me. I know this don't feel right. If you have a period for a year and then the second year, all of a sudden, your cramps are a little heavier. Okay, something changed. My flow is a little heavier. So if you have doctors that don't shoot you off, you can get the access and the care you need, because then it ties to that. It ties to your medical, financial. Like there's certain points of RJ that you brought up. You brought up the financial piece. You brought up the medical piece. As far as like believing me, knowing I know my body, having full autonomy to say what happens to my body or what I need for my body. It ties all into reproductive justice.
And
reproductive justice.
What I'll say as someone who spoke with my school's administration is that they're very accepting of the initiative. They talk to me, they talk to the points in the proposal that maybe on the administrative side aren't okay. They talk me through it, and they're talking with me currently. So what this speaks to is that women just are left out of the conversation.
Most
They
definitely.
know that we're here, they just don't talk about us. They're willing to accept change. We just don't talk about what we want to change. And as y'all said, like, period justice ties into reproductive justice. Our bodily autonomy as women, as female born people, is that ties into our rights as people. Because if we aren't, that's I'm gonna say it as a history buff. As a history
Come on
buff,
with this.
women did not used to have these rights. We were told that we were too weak. We were told that, oh, we're just birthing machines. That's why women back in maybe the 1920s had about 10, 15 children. My great grandma had 13, I believe, and that was viewed as normal.
Bless her, Jesus.
Yes, bless her heart. And that was viewed as normal, and it wasn't until recently, like in some countries, like, I don't know, it was one country where women weren't allowed the right to vote until 1980. And when you think about it, that's really recently in human history. We've coexisted with
Just
men
100
since
years
the
in
beginning
United
of time.
States. Just 100 plus 4 or 5 years here.
And the only reason that we really saw that big shift and change was because of a whole world war where people were finally given the voice, where women were forced to go into positions that people thought were only for men because of the war, because men had to go to war, and women were finally allowed to be in those positions, and we were finally given a voice, and people finally started talking. That's when the conversation became, we deserve the same rights. We deserve bodily autonomy. We aren't just birthing machines. And when it comes to our periods, like back in medieval times, women would starve themselves. That's how they would gain their bodily autonomy. They would starve themselves so that they wouldn't have to deal with their period and they wouldn't have to be forced to give birth. And taking such extreme measures only happens when we aren't given a voice to talk about our bodies, when we aren't given a voice in medical settings to talk about our issues, or given a chance to explain why we think this is wrong, why we think this is happening. I remember one time one of my friend's moms dealt with this dude and he said, oh, I don't want you using tampons because you're taking away your virginity. Huh? What do you mean?
Tampons out here breaking hymens. Okay.
Right. Like, it's just a silly issue to think that these misconceptions can be so easily dealt with if people just talked about it.
I mean, the research is there, so
The research
the
is there.
choice, you make a choice not to go look for it, because we birth justice, we took some to a school in the neighborhood, and the nurse was like, oh, our girls who swim need these, and her boss was there and she was like, absolutely not. Y'all can leave the pass. Y'all can't even leave the pass. We're being told like they don't have the access, they don't have the machines, they don't have what they need. The nurse is looking us in our face like, this is a need and we need it. And the boss is like, absolutely not. And then why? Oh, we're not allowed to give tampons. So I just dug a little deeper. Well, can you elaborate? It's somebody's personal choice. I say, is it tied to their like personal ethics, or is it tied to something scientific? Oh no, it's definitely personal ethics. So there's this conception, especially because Texas is right. It's a notch in the Bible Belt.
State.
And so there's this concept of like you're gaining pleasure from using a tampon.
Walk in one that ain't put in right.
It will end your day. You're gonna have to find something quick to readjust.
Yeah. But I want to make sure that we don't miss. I was listening to you talk. What and you are really articulating this well. I love it. Here's the thing. I had more rights. I'm 63. I had more rights than either one of y'all said. I'm really happy to see you all doing this. I think I said when I introduced myself to y'all in the office earlier. When I was so when at 16, I had rights I didn't even know I had, right? Now at 16 I would have been able to get an abortion, right? Um, at 16 you can't. We're talking like over the last 53 years. So and it don't just start with abortion, don't get me wrong. There's so many, like even some of the women, it's like just women rights in general. Like, so you're talking about women during World War II, when women started to go to service and do some of those jobs and stuff. And then it's like, oh well, women can do this work and women can work outside of the home like men. Well, you have a whole group of people now who don't want women working outside of the home. They want people in the house having babies.
They want you to be a homemaker.
And so it is so sad, but hopefully to see the two of you, like I have hope that I sit in this space with the two of you who's fighting against these systems of oppression, especially how these systems of oppression hurt women, especially how these systems of oppression hurt non-white women, that I feel like we're going to be all right, right? Because I'm tired. I would just tell you the truth. I'm tired. I have no business. And I know people who have been in this fight way longer than I have. Like, I know women who marched for Roe v. Wade, who were there when the decision was made downtown Dallas. I know them. Those women should not still be fighting this fight again. They should be gone somewhere. Vacate, not vacationing, but just like, and I think some of them are gone too because they tired too. But I just wanted to say, I just don't want that point to be missed. That what you said is so important. But they're trying to take away voting rights.
Yes.
And those rights won't just be for non-white people. They will be for women too if we don't stop it.
And especially like my political standpoint, I'm not really on either side. I'm more like in the middle. I hate radicals. That's who I really don't like, is they're the ones who are changing on the liberal and the conservative side. If you're too radical, you're gonna incite change that really isn't needed. How they took away Roe v. Wade, how they're taking away DEI, how they're trying to make a bill where if your last name isn't the same as your birth name, you can't vote. That's too radical. You're forcing people to go according to what you believe in, but not everyone believes in the same thing. So for you to force someone to like take on the same policies as you, like I know people who are upset about abortion, okay, don't get an abortion. If you don't like abortions, don't get an abortion. But someone else getting an abortion is not affecting your life. Someone else maybe getting hired because of their skin color, because of their sex, that's not really affecting you, because the statistics say that we're still disadvantaged even with those rights, even with those policies helping us. We're still at a disadvantage, and those are just there to help us live a better life. So for you to want to take that away and force someone to believe in the same thing as you is just crazy to me, especially in a country like the United States where we're literally a melting pot. Our whole concept, our whole culture is that you can come here, you could be who you want to be without anyone saying anything. But it's not.
But it can be.
But it can be.
But it can be. And I don't, I know we're going to be winding down soon, but I don't want this to I don't want us to miss how powerful a moment like this is. Because this is a powerful moment. Because as we talk about reproductive justice, those 12 black women who were in Chicago, and there was a moment, there was a time for a movement there. And what was happening in Chicago at that time was not a bad thing. They were talking about health reproductive health rights. They were really talking about, access to abortion, all of that kind of stuff. Those black women were very clear that our experiences did not start or stop with getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, and what happens after that. At the time that that happened, HIV was on an all high among Black women. People were not having access to health care in the way in which they needed. Folk were still not being paid equitable wages, and they're still not. Jobs were not available as available for a certain segment of the community. I don't want people to think that we just started having this immigration fight, because it was immigration fight was happening then. Horrible things were still happening to indigenous people. All of this stuff was happening, and that is why these women said, no, we finna caucus, we finna pull this conversation to another room, we're finna come back with the thing, because our entire lived experiences have to be sitting on the table, not just that one thing. Because you see, for many women, it is all of the things that happen in our life that bring us to that one thing. And if you are not going to include all of our entire lived experience, then you need to sit down. And that is probably sometimes why here we are 50 some years after Roe, that we've lost Roe, because it stayed a single issue fight for far too long. And it stayed a single issue fight to people who had more proximity to power. And so we find ourselves here now. So I'm equating you all to those women. Those women were brave. They weren't exactly sure what was going to come of this, but here we are 31 years later, and we still have RJ. And it's not getting weaker, it's getting stronger. Now everybody want to say they RJ, but that's another conversation. And we're getting stronger. And you too, the fact that you all took this step, because you're fighting against a school system, you're fighting against a machine. And you've gotten this far with it? Like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My hat's off to y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're going to take one more break, and we're going to come back and speak to the mental health impact. Speaking about bodily dignity. So we talk about full bodily autonomy, but also like the dignity within how you take on your full bodily autonomy. So we're going to take a quick little break, and we'll be back. Welcome back to RJ Verified. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and wind down. And our last topic that I want to discuss is the disproportionate impact on Black communities. And we're going to say Black and brown communities because Pac. I love that.
Pop, baby, pop.
And so we're going to speak to the bodily autonomy and dignity, as well as the mental health piece when you're talking about taking on your full bodily autonomy, right? Or just in period justice, because with the testimony in here where the young lady said that she walked for a while looking for a restroom and she soiled her pants. And so, like, what does that do to not only the taboo around periods, but also like your mental health, like a shame aspect, because yes, shame is put on us, but like it's almost like when you come out the womb, you have a hold on shame as a woman, because it's so many do's, don't look, be what you want me to be, how you want me to look, how you want me to show up, right? So when we're talking about the mental health piece around not having access to period products, not having access to hygienic, safe spaces, not having access to, because it sounds like your access to just use the bathroom, like to ask to go to the bathroom is being taken, right? What is that doing to pop girls?
So I'll speak on the Black perspective, and Leslie will speak on the Latino perspective. But as a Black girl, I've like been in majority Black schools all of my life. In elementary school, I knew girls who started their period in 3rd grade. I started my period in 5th grade. It was really an embarrassing time and a shameful time for me, especially because I hit puberty early than most people I knew. I developed quicker. During middle school, I wore big hoodies. I wore large pants because I was ashamed of my body. I was ashamed to talk about my body, and my period most definitely tied into that because I was just ashamed to ask my friend for like a pad.
Yeah.
Whenever my friends would talk about it so openly, I would look at them and I would shame them. And that's just that I learned from the community that I was raised in. But as I've gotten more into advocacy work and just talking about my body more openly, not being ashamed of it as I'm growing up, I just learned that it's okay, and I have to personally destigmatize myself.
Yeah.
As a Black woman, because in the Black community, it's shameful to talk about it. Whenever my male family members would come around and I was just wearing a tank top and no bra, my mom would be like, go put on a shirt, go put on a bra. And I was just like, well, they're family. Why do I have to do that? But I couldn't question that because that was just the culture she was raised in. She's an older woman than most mothers. So I didn't question her because I trusted her wisdom.
Yeah.
But as I'm growing older, I'm questioning it. I'm going against it. Anytime a family member says, "Oh, you need to cover up," I tell them, "Why are they looking? They're family." Anytime my young female cousins come to me and ask me questions about their bodies, I'm very open about it. I'll tell them the names of their body parts. I'll tell them like what you have to do. I'll tell them how to go about asking your mom for certain things, because they're coming to me and I don't want to be like how the older community was and just shaming them and not telling them, and they're confused about it, and you have to learn as you grow up or as you become an adult. No, you need to learn about that now, especially in Pop communities, because we do develop earlier. Like a lot of my Hispanic friends got their periods before me. A lot of my other Black friends got their periods before me. A lot of even some of my Asian friends got their periods before me. Like, it's just a crazy thing that's so stigmatized, and we have to learn to break those stigmas.
And that's exactly what you're doing. You're breaking this shame and stigma. And be clear, they might look at you like, what? When you say that. But there's something that I really love that this younger generation is doing. It causes you to, why do I feel that? It causes you to go in and dismantle some of that stigma and shame that you have within yourself, because then you question, Why do I say that?
Mhm.
Because some people, like you said, I just trusted your wisdom, so I went with it without ever questioning it. So I didn't get to break down the why did we get here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we want to create this sense of community of between us as women and anybody that wants to be in it. But the fact that we are open to talking about this, open to providing you this education about yourself, and like how Kelsey was saying, she's open to telling her little cousins about the questions that she's been asked by them. We want to create this sense of like this safe place and this community between ourselves and our family, our friends, any women out there.
And how do you experience
Yeah.
any stigma around, like, well, not even stigma, but like
Just
how does
culture.
it affect your mental health, like culturally? How do you deal with periods within your culture?
So, well, I attended this mainly Hispanic middle school, and every like around every 2 weeks we would have girls think they would go and talk to us, and they created this safe place. They would have all the boys in the gym, and they would have all the girls in this room, and they would give us talks. They would provide education for us, and they would always have little activities, and that created a sense of community between all the girls in the school, which allowed everybody to feel safe with outside of this their talks outside of this room, to be able to talk to these other girls about what's going on or any questions we have, like upperclassmen. If we want to ask them about what's going on, they're willing to answer those questions for you and create that sense of safe, that sense of community between us as Hispanics, or even if any other cultural women were there with us.
Within your family, like within your home life, rather, that big family, right? How did you experience how did you see periods growing up, or how did your families talk about?
Oh, my family, the women in my family were really open to like talking about stuff like this. They've been supporting me every way. When we started Code Red, they've been supporting. My mom was really happy when I told her about what we were doing, and she liked that I took the power. And and well, on my mom's side of my family, we're really open to they're more like modern. They're more like they talk about stuff. They're all up to date with everything that's going on in the world, and they're really open to talking about all this stuff.
One of the things I noticed, we got two things going here, because y'all know I'm gonna pretty much say non-white folk. One of the things I notice about non-white folk is that the closer we are to our familiar heritage, the further away those kind of stigmas lie. So we're so far removed as Black folk, right? So sometimes when we are friends with and in community with folk who are like directly like got on a plane and said, I'm coming to America, not kidnapped to come over here from Africa, those folk have a different relationship with periods, with all of this kind of stuff, with all of these things, because this was celebrated. See, it was a celebration. Miss Helen right here with us a couple of weeks ago, she was going to I think it's a moon celebration. All the aunties was getting together because one of the nieces was about to start her flow, and they were having a celebration because that's what they did. We did that too until they brought us here. They kidnapped us and brought us here and ripped all of that away from us. And so people that are still more connected to that, their direct culture, those things don't happen. But what do happen is, the more acclimated that those folk get to whiteness, they start to lose some of
it. There is, like, when you think about like Red Tent, it speaks to how indigenous women, so indigenous, wherever you're indigenous to, the women go away and take care of each other during their cycle. And so we lost a piece of that, because I even think about like how I learned about period. It was just, don't have a baby, because now you can have babies. And that was it. We never really went through. And so now, like, I have conversations with my daughter about, like, how do you feel? What's going on? I'm noticing a couple days before, like, nobody walked through the pieces of it with me. Okay, I'm not gonna because there's a thing too, like when I say it happens to everyone, right? Yeah, you cramp and get up and go. Well, you gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it depends on how far it's going. I'm going, okay, you could rest today. So it's little things that we do that changes how it looks, but we have conversations beforehand, like knowing when, like there, like you said, when they're going to celebrate her about to have her moon cycle, right? Because your body does something that lets you know that I'm in the window.
Yeah.
And so reading some books, I just happen to know, like, okay, what's going on? So I'm researching. I'm like, oh, okay, we in the window. And so I don't even want to say I just want to say, because our education sounds good, right? Educating ourselves, but talking. Storytelling is a major aspect into what we pass down, what we remove stigma from, what we know, like you experience, I experience. Talking to each other about what's coming up, no matter how old. Somebody was having a conversation with me today where they baby was saying, I'm about to be 9, so you know. And it felt good because, and she was like, me and my friends. And so it's like, when you think about, right, even when you guys are saying like the boys are helping out, there is something that's happening and it's changing. And it sounds to me like parents are talking to their kids, or somebody's in their life is speaking to them and letting them know, right? Because you have 8-year-old girls, like, you know, it's coming. And
and that's the way it's supposed to be.
They have no stigma, no shame. It ain't no shame that has even come to their mind about it, because this is just what my body's supposed to do in their minds, right? So that's like, it's important to bring back talking to each other, because it removes the stigma and the shame. What you're doing within your family is amazing, even within your friend groups, because when you're thinking about, it might not happen in my family. I might be the radical. I know you don't like radicals, but some of us are a little radical. I might be the radical in my family or my friend group, right? So something that might be taboo.
You're more radical than you think.
You are very radical. I might be talking about something within my friend group and making it normal. And so now all of my friends, it breaks down that wall of shame, right? Because you're not making it an issue. It's not an ill thing to you. And you bring it up. And so at first, everybody might be like, what? Oh my goodness, what you talking about? But then you just known as like, you the person I can come to and talk to about anything, because you don't make it an issue. It's not an issue around your period. There is no issue. Your body is doing, and some people ain't gonna cycle, right? But also that goes back to environmental justice and the medical justice, right? Because our competent medical treatments or advising, because a lot of stuff is preventative care, right? And in low income communities, we already there. When by the time my doctor takes us serious, like we have to darn near be pushed in on a gurney for them to take our issue serious. But we do know that if I stay in an environmentally unsafe place, it's going to cause different issues with my body. So if we had more better preventative care, that's a whole nother to get into why I might not menstruate. But you could already check that and address that beforehand, right? Because I'm in this house with asbestos in this community that y'all just looked over. Y'all told everybody else to rip the asbestos out, but y'all just keep painting these apartments and leaving us in here with this mold and asbestos. And it is actually like weathering, something called weathering. Black girls, and I can speak to black girls, right? They are, our bodies, if you flipped us inside out, our bodies are a little bit more older in our systems due to weather, due to all of the systemic issues that we face. So when you are talking about things, right, or if your friend can feel safe enough to come to you and say something ain't right, like something going on, and you can say, hey, you might need to talk to your mama about you give them the confidence to go have that conversation, mom, who might be open to it, but I just don't know, because we ain't never talked about it. So I do like that. And then the mental health aspect, when you think about it, mental health piece is why we have girls dropping out, right? Because I did something wrong. You ain't did nothing wrong, but shame will tell you a story, a whole new story in your mind, or everybody saw it. And what you said, I don't have to do a Mission Impossible, because ain't nobody worried about us passing pads or tampons, because it's regular.
Because the more we talk about it, the more it will become a regular thing
for everybody. And so it's just, if you tell one person, it's like telephone. It passes and it gets to who it needs to get to.
And even
For
if
both men
you
and women.
Agree.
And I think the men and women part is important. I don't want to underestimate the men part about it because my son grew up in a house full of women. So I'm thinking, I would probably say Taquan probably had no problem with saying, Darren, come bring me a tampon. You know, what was he gonna do? Just brag to her, you know? So you got a place that y'all have a place you can start with, because so many boys are more sympathetic to it than we even know. Because here is the thing, we're not talking to them. They see their sisters cramping, they see their sisters being sick. They know all of this. They do have to be the one to run to the store at the last minute to pick them up a box of tampons or a box of pads or whatever. They don't have anybody to talk to it about, right? And so I think sometimes we miss opportunities because and you don't even have to be in a single household to grow up in a house full of men. There are many even married households where that man don't have not one. That man don't have not one son in his house. He have a house full of girls. And so, those people tend to be more sympathetic. So I love the fact that the information, the standing up for, because it's got to be both. Advocacy, it comes from two different places. Somebody's going to be providing that information. Somebody's going to be standing up there. You got to say
this principal, when Kelsey had talked to him about our movement and our project, he has his wife and his daughters, so there's no
man.
There's no man.
He's the only man in the house.
It's a different understanding.
He was really open.
But he was still confused about some things, and it's like they're open to talk about it, but nobody wants to talk about it with them.
Just pick it up at the store and put it in it.
Yeah, like
because he's buying pads and all kinds.
One of my friends, he's actually our videographer. He came to me. He's in a house full of boys. Like, the only girl in his house is his grandma.
Whoa.
So he was just a little bit confused about it when I said, "Hey, can y'all come and support us?" Because I was in a technology club. It was mostly boys, and I was like, "Hey, can y'all come support us?" They were just like, "Why?" And I said, "Well, why not?" Yeah. Why would you not want to come help and support? There are always gonna be women in your life. So why don't, even if it's just not at the moment, you're gonna have women in your life in the future. So why don't you stand up for them now? Because they're more likely to listen to you. It's a systematic issue, but they are more likely to listen to a man who's taking up on the issue than a woman. And that's how you
use your proximity to power
Mm-hmm.
to advocate for others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he attended the meeting, and he's now one of our most active
members. Yeah, he really is.
All because you said, why not?
Why not? I love it.
I also, in that same club, technology club, I had, a friend. He was talking about a reproductive issue, and he said, "I think abortion is murder." And I had to explain to him the different uses for it and how it affects women. And I had to talk about birth. That's a difficult time for people. It's not all the same for one woman. Even if your mother might have had an easy birth with you, another woman may have been in labor for 40 hours. It was the most painful time of her life. And he just didn't understand that he came from an all-male household as well. So I had to explain to him, and now he's a little bit more open about it. He's changed his opinions. And that's all because I spoke to him.
I probably would have lost him, because he probably would have said, "I think that is murder." And I would have said, "I think that is birth control." But anyway.
you have to understand.
I probably would have lost him.
You have to understand that people come from different perspectives. My family is majority Catholic, so I can understand why they're more conservative, but you just have to talk to them. You can't outright be like, "No, you're wrong." You have to come from a place of understanding.
And that's why I feel it's very important to have that education and provide that education for the people that don't really understand or know or are confused about these topics.
Yeah. But also, I want y'all to do y'all research too, because it is not on the oppressed to educate,
Educate
to the
via
manual labor
oppressive.
of educating you
Via
as well.
oppressive.
I can, in that instance, a friend or somebody I'm in close proximity, but there is a lot of, I want you to do the sweat labor to go get the education and bring it back to me. Because the same way y'all got the education, is people out there. Not necessarily you know people you have access to, but y'all know who I'm talking to.
Right.
You.
And these conversations are going to come up, like, because here's the thing, advocacy don't stop. So you start your advocacy right here. It don't stop right here.
No.
This open up a whole, like, Pandora's box of things that have to be addressed. And so you're going to, and you're going to come up on these conversations, and it is not ever our responsibility to make our oppressors feel comfortable. And so, but those are conversations that you grow into, you move into. So I'm never ever the one that's going to make you feel comfortable with what need to be said. But I'm definitely going to inform you. I definitely believe in educating people, because for me, every moment is a moment to educate somebody. Even in the midst of your ignorance, it is an opportunity to bring you out of the dark and into the light. And so I take that opportunity.
And a very important part of that is having is that person being open to learning, and
Yes.
being open to listening to what these people have to
I
say.
might not right now. Right. If somebody's not open, I might not need to do this tussle with you.
Right.
Oh, and I'm
Like-
not ever going to tussle with them.
And some people are more open than others, and you could tell sometimes you just gotta walk away. You just gotta walk away.
So, in the closing, like, we're going to go ahead and close down.
This has been amazing.
It has been amazing. We are very thankful that you two came out and talked to us about your mission and just about the topics around this, and that you're so open to learn more, that, because I'm pretty sure a lot of this, like, when I had y'all at Easy Access Clinic and I was explaining reproductive justice, some of your team members was like, Kelsey, you ain't say all this. But when I met with you, Kelsey, the first time, I was like, oh, she look, I told Miss Jones, oh, she look radical. She look radical. So,
Always been the outspoken one.
I am thankful that you all, and I hope you all learn, like, some more deeper information, like how this ties to so much more than just your period. And I also want to throw on the table so everybody can hold, if you're in the state of Texas, right? 28 states to be exact. But in Texas, we just had a policy change. House Bill 550 mandates that Texas school districts provide free tampons and pads,
I saw that
and
one.
they have to put the machines back in the bathroom. So hold your districts accountable if they have not. And I think that starts in, that's 2025,
So
2026
it'll probably
school
start
year.
September 1.
Yep. Hold them accountable if they have not, because they got all summer to put those machines up.
All summer.
And so I also want to do a call to action for everybody who is watching, right? I want us to end the shame by having the conversations. Men, ask the questions. Do your research. Google is free. They got all kind of TikToks. You're on your phone anyways. Do your research so you can, and advocate for the womb holders in your life.
Yeah.
Advocate for them. Advocate if you're at your job as a man and you see that, okay, we got all these women work here, or we got these womb holders that work here, but ain't no machines or ain't no pads. Advocate. It's okay to step out and advocate.
And how about having the machines in both bathrooms?
In both.
Because it's a whole new world.
Because
It's a
advocate
whole
for
new
the womb
world.
holders. Because I might not show up and identify as what you think, but I might hold a womb and
But
I
I
use
might
the
hold
male
one,
bathroom.
and I use the male bathroom.
So have the machines in both restrooms, but just, and take away the shame. As a person who might not be menstruating, take away that shame to where
Yeah.
you can feel comfortable. If you got your girlfriend have her pads, we have somebody who work here who get all he makes sure it's at his house for his girl, and so I love that, because that's a way of taking away shame and stigma. Have the conversations, and women, womb holders in general, have the conversations amongst your friend groups, because then your friend groups got friend groups. And so the conversation travels. So I'm just going to hold you all to conversating and advocating for each other.
And I want to say one more thing
on,
about
take
having them in both bathrooms. So some fights we win quicker than we win others. So the unlocking and locking of the bathrooms may be a longer fight, But if you've created advocacy among your like male or whatever counterparts inside the school, then they wouldn't have a problem with going into their bathroom, because it's always the man's bathroom line is never as long as the women, right? And so they can very well go in and get needs for their friends, or the people that they're a part of. So it is about it being convenient too. Yes, we live in a different world now, and things are not always the way they look on the surface, but also it's about creating equity. And so when there are both places, that creates a more equitable space, because it removes the barriers, right? So it don't remove all of them, because we know what would have to happen to remove all of them, but one barrier would be removed, and that's having access to the bathroom.
And
Now you've doubled your access to the bathroom.
Is there anything you are, and Project Code Red will be at our Get Tested Grab a Bite this year, so come with Zen and hear more about their mission, meet more of their team members that will be here. Is there any final thought?
Go follow us on our Instagram.
Yep.
_project code red project, and we're also working on opening a Facebook account, and we will be posting anytime soon our fundraiser information and link, so please.
And that will be linked with this episode, where we'll have their Instagram as well as their donation link. So please send some donations out and help this group do what they need to do to advocate at Duncanville High School. Duncanville High School, I'm gonna be at the board meeting.
One last thing, y'all. Education is free, and you have a voice, so use it.
I love it.
So if you have any comments or questions, put them in the chat below this video, and we will see them, and we may answer them on the next episode, or we may just answer you right in the chat. So with that being said, episode 2 is named Pride Was a Protest, Not a Party. The criminalization of Black bodies and its impact on reproductive autonomy. Ms. Jones, you wanna?
So I'm not going to say a lot about that, because I want to hold it.
Yeah.
But I do want to sit with Pride was a protest and not a party. And it takes nothing away from the fact that we come together and we do party, but we definitely don't want to miss. This is 2025, y'all. We don't want to miss the fact that it was a protest, and what what was being protested, and it was the over criminalizing of Black bodies, or not even Black bodies. So let me just stop. It was the over criminalizing of bodies. They fought against the over criminalizing of bodies that was not being used in the way in which they thought those bodies were supposed to be used. That was not loving in the way that they thought that those bodies were supposed to love. Was not finding pleasure in the way that they thought that those bodies were supposed to find pleasure. And so folks said no. We'll talk about who said no. It was many of them, but we would definitely talk about my namesake, Marsha P. Johnson. I'm Marsha, she Marsha. I feel like I have her spirit. But we would definitely talk about what founded this and why we are here. And there's never, ever been a time that's as important as it is now, that we are talking about what happens when we start to criminalize bodies and robbing people of full bodily autonomy and body determination.
So we'll catch you next time on RJ
See y'all.
Verified.